Hi everyone, welcome to Convos with Nifa, where we teach, learn, explore, and discuss issues related to our community for sustainable community development. Karibuni. Welcome to a new episode of Convos with Nifa. I am your host Hanifa Kut, and today I have a guest who will introduce himself and tell us briefly about himself. Karibu.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. My name is Nickson Orwa. I'm a Kenyan, born in Mombasa, brought up in Nakuru, went to school in Kisumu, later went back to university in Nairobi, then started working in Nakuru, went back in South Sudan, came back to Lamu, found myself in Naivasha, finally now working in Nairobi.
Okay, you talked about very many areas, meaning you have experience from different areas. As a professional, who are you?
Nice one. I always have trouble explaining myself. I remember, for example, we have a movement somewhere, and every time people write the professions, I always have trouble. So basically, I did sociology, so I'm a sociologist, then role development. So that's in terms of academics. But I'm a person who believes that what you learn in school is not necessarily what you are. It's basically a foundation. Most of these things that then you do is where your passion could be or where you experience that you gain going forward. So I started working as a project assistant in an organization called Reconcile in Nakuru, which is basically dealing with environmental issues. Then I found myself in South Sudan in a very interesting way. We were in a workshop and the manager was around and nobody had volunteered to take notes. So being the youngest in the team, I agreed to take notes, and somehow the manager was impressed. The next week there was supposed to be a trip to South Sudan. The person who was supposed to go didn't have a passport. I had a passport. I was told if I was interested. For me it was a nice thing, given that it was the first time to fly out. Wow. So I flew out, went to a place called Toposa, and the rest, as they say, is history. Thank you.
Wow. That should encourage any youth out there or any young person out there. Sometimes we wait for opportunities to get us, but in reality, sometimes we have to tap into opportunities that are there. Because while you're waiting somewhere else, someone somewhere else is doing something extra, and anywhere you are, someone is always watching. So you might be sitting down there waiting for someone to pull you from whatever you're doing, but in reality you need to take a step for that person to hold your hand so that you can get to where you want to get to, right?
Well said.
Yeah, so when it comes to community development, what can you say about community development?
Thank you so much. So how did I find myself first in working community development? So when I went to South Sudan, we were supposed to support them to develop community land laws that just signed their peace after so many years of war with the North Arabs. So again, this opened my life to working with communities, because again, having been brought in Kenya, working communities in Kenya, then I went to a place where communities are totally different, with lots of other expectations. So lots of learning. So you leave sometimes what you've learned in school and start learning. So basically every community is different. Community in Kajiado, for example, where you are today, is totally different from the one in Kisumu. There are places, for example, when you go for community meeting, you'll get them waiting for you. But there are places where they'll wait, you go first, they'll ask questions whether you've arrived, and then they'll come. So if you go and say that you're impatient and say that this community is where they are, it's because, one thing that people keep forgetting is that communities have all the time. Communities are also busy. They're either farming or taking care of the livestock or taking care of the children. But you always believe as practitioners that communities are waiting for us. They're also busy anyway. So I think we don't take care of their time. So for me, I think community work is interesting that in one, every community is different from the next one. Two, you learn every day. It's not like in an office work setting. Three, you need to listen to the communities, because most of the time when you come, you should be like thinking inside a box, because when you come to a community, learn to listen to them, support them to come up with the issues, support them then again to come up with, because they have the solutions. But when you think you can sit somewhere and say that this community needs a water tank, for example, or this community needs a cattle dip, and maybe they don't even have cattle in the first place, then you come up with things that you get frustrated when they're not taken into account because you didn't understand what their priorities are.
Yeah, okay. And that's good because lately I've noticed when it comes to community development, just how you said, several communities actually know their own issues. So if you come here, you've thought about what you want to do, and then you decide to go do the specific thing you've thought about, the community might not embrace it, and then there won't be sustainability. The community might not develop as per the views that we have, but in reality, they view the development of the specific community from a different angle. And just as you're saying, communities are usually busy, and over time, I've got to notice that even when you're planning to have community engagement, you need to know their rosters. If you decide to go on a market day, you're actually going to speak to yourself. If you're going to tell them, do this and do that, the community might not accept. And so far, just talking about community and their ideas and having it be bottom-up approach, not the political one, but yeah, such an aspect. There's an important thing that so far we've noticed is so important, and it's FPIC. Can you tell us something about FPIC? The full meaning, like I know I've said in abbreviations, but maybe the importance of FPIC, especially when you're speaking about community development.
Thank you. FPIC is free, prior, and informed consent. So free means that when you engage with the communities, they should make their decisions free without being forced. It should not be coerced. It should be free without being forced. Free meaning at their own time, not necessarily giving them time to say that if I don't get answers within 2 hours, you're not going to work, because that's almost like a blackmail.
Yeah.
Then prior means that they need to have been given more time in terms of thinking beyond that. And I could give you a scenario. Most of the time, if you remember when you're even coming up with policies and laws and constitution and other things, the experts will ask for lawyers to come and break them down for them. But communities, it's assumed that they'll have to look at it, you read it for them, then they give you answers now. That's not how it works. It should be even the communities have the time to have that prior before you do this. Informed means that you need to do it from a point of knowledge. So it means that, for example, if you want to, let's say, go back to the law, you should be like looking at what is the cost and benefit of, for example, coming up with this law. Why, if we agree to it, what would it mean for us? If you don't agree to it, what does it mean for us? Because sometimes I think we push communities to agree to things that without telling them the whole story. So, for example, you tell people that, you know what, we want to come up with a water policy for this place. But they should ask you, so what is the worst that can happen if you don't have it? And what's the best scenario? And what are the cost implications? Because, for example, you come up with a water policy, and communities that were getting water for free now have to pay for it. And you don't tell, and they don't understand that. So when then happens, then you realize, why do you not do this? And then consent. Consent means that, again, it should be that you don't force consent. And also remember that consent can also be withdrawn. So again, for me, I think free, prior, and informed consent is very, very important in everything that we do, even at home with your children. When, for example, we talk about educational matters, you realize that, for example, children are not being asked even the systems that we have. It's us adults who think, we think for them. But the things will not affect us, will affect the people that you're forgetting. In justice-based approaches, we say that the most affected should be the most involved. So, for example, you're working in an area, so the people will be most affected. And then remember, even in community, it's not like it's one group. It's different people within the group. So if this project is about women, talk to the women within the group. If it's about youth, talk to both the youth. But even women, they're different. There could be youth who've gone to school, the youth who have not gone to school. There could be ones who are not very well conversant. There could be ones who already gotten it. There could be ones who are in urban setting. There could be ones who in the rural settings. So ensuring that all that is done, engagement is done, and then they're given time. Sometimes you go to communities and they tell you that you need more time. Don't be in a rush. Give them 1 week or 2 weeks. Come back when they already gotten this, and they even have their own lawyers who have helped them understand this, so that when you come back, you get it's for the content that is already taken time and they have understood all these things. Because even us, sometimes it takes time for community to trust you.
Yeah.
So when you go there and you think, why are they not listening to me? Even me myself, I can't meet somebody today and tell me that I'm selling you this shirt and I take it. I'll think of it first. So why do you think it's different with a community where so many people? So give them time, come back. If they say no, then it's okay. If they say yes, then continue with that. But from a point of view that every card is put on the table and not others are hidden below. And then the other thing that keeps interesting to me is when communities ask to be paid and people ask why. And we are paid. When you work, you're not doing it for free. So why you do ask why my mother in Semi is asking for money? See, also, thank you.
Really, you just gotten so passionate. But a key thing to also note when you were talking about the FPIC, you've even touched on stakeholder engagement, which is also important, because sometimes you go to a group of people and let the elite in the society speak for the others, when in reality the people who have the indigenous knowledge that you might require in some of these communities are actually those who you don't allow to have their voice heard, which is quite unfortunate. And also it's very important to consider things like language and translation and interpretation of the matter you're sharing. So it is very important to ensure that people get to fully understand what is being done and having full disclosure while doing the FPIC process, so that in the end someone does not say, I was coerced to do this, or there's information that was hidden in the process that makes you think or decide you are forced, or you're forced to make the specific decision and give consent. And finally, what do you think has changed so far, especially in engagement with the community and towards ensuring that the communities develop over the period of time that you've been in the community engagement and development space? Because I believe right now you've gotten to around how many years?
Maybe 20 years.
Yeah, wow.
Only.
Oh my God, that's a long time. If I start thinking about where I was 20 years ago,
don't.
Best believe I was still in. I don't want to calculate that. Yeah. So for the past 20 years, what can you say has really changed, especially the way we community development is done, the interactions with the community? Are things getting better? Are we forcing issues on people? Are things changing? Like, what can you say about that?
A good question that could take a whole day discussion. But again, I think when everything else has evolved, people still think that communities are not evolved. Everything has changed in this world. So sometimes back, maybe in the 2010s and others, we used to have community. We used to think as practitioners that communities didn't know anything. So we used to think that as we've been sent to go and save communities. So we'd go, like you want communities to sit down, you tell them what you want to tell them, you think that's enough, then you come up with solutions, then you go away, then you come back to start implementing that, then you go away, then you come up to evaluate, then the project ends, then you ask yourself, why did you not achieve what you intended to achieve? So maybe you achieved 3 or 4 people who have farmed or who have gotten money, and you say that that's enough. And then at that time, I think, because most of community, and when I say community, most in rural areas, the people who had gone to school were mostly in towns. So you'd talk, and most people will not question you, and they think you are the best you have the best news to this community. But slowly things are changing. So now we have communities, rural communities, where the best learned people are. Best learned means that they have gone to school. But even those who are not going to school have the indigenous knowledge that you, as a person who just come in, you never understand. So it means then that even the way we engage is totally different. Like, for example, as you just said, if you go to community A or community B, you want to understand why they're doing the things they are doing. You'd want to go the justice-based approach in terms of, so why are there people in the situation where they are, for example, doing maize every other year and they don't get anything out of it? Maybe it's because of the way the systems have been in place. Maybe it's because of people who have gone before you who've done things thinking that communities are just hollow, so you pour content and then the content changes to whatever you want. But now we have communities who are not really beneficiaries, but they are the lighted guys. It's you to come and sit down with them, explain what you want, what you would propose, give them time to absorb that, then they'll give you the way forward. Because ultimately, whatever you want to invest in a community, you will go, but them they'll remain there. So for them, it's in the long haul. So for you, it's maybe you have a project of 2 years or 3 years, and you don't know what will happen after these 3 years. So imagine if you, for example, introduced an invasive species in the community, you will go away, write your report, but for the community, it will be a whole generation that is affected.
Yeah.
So meaning then that now most of the communities now know they are right, the way it's supposed to be, and they'll demand for that in terms of why are we in a hurry to do these things, because they know that they need to do this. And again, remember that participation is not like it's not something that you just, it's a right for every people.
Yeah.
And our Constitution 2010 tells that public participation and other things. So communities now know that their rights are not just things that you throw away, it's the things that they have to be done. There are things that you have to do for things to happen. Not just for sustainability, but just the way to do things.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, remember, in communities, for example, now if you go, for example, if it's beach management units or CFAs, there are guys there who are professors. You may not see them when you meet for the first time, but they're seated there. There are guys who maybe are not professors in the school system, but the professors in the systems are things that they have always done.
Yeah.
Also remember that in this group, there are also youth who have lots of energy and are ready to test things to see whether it works or not.
Yeah.
So again, things have changed in terms of what used to happen in the past, where people would come from wherever they are, come and preach to communities and ask why they're not changing. Now, most of the time, it's even you who's supposed to change because you're learning, and sometimes you realize that whatever you came with from school is not working here. Maybe it's working in Kisumu, but not in Kajiado, for example. So how do you make sure that you understand more, you listen more, let them tell you what works with them, and see what the entry point is. And sometimes the entry point could also be very important. You have talked about elites. So most of the elites, because they know what practitioners want, they'll tell you what you want to hear. But in reality, it's all greed, it's all selfish interest. So I think for me, listen more to the communities, get the consent from the communities. Remember that even communities are not homogeneous. There could be others who are interested, others who are not interested. And that's okay for people to say that you are not interested in doing this. It doesn't make them, the thing we say that this was unliterate. There's nothing like calling people literate. They're different. So give them time, and if it doesn't work today, it will work tomorrow, or maybe it will work elsewhere, but not here. I think there's not. It's better you have issues at the beginning rather than investing in 3 or 4 years, and then the things are not working, and your money is gone, the project is gone, and there's nothing on the ground.
And then something that is also changing with dealing with the communities, even as they continue knowing their rights and having people who speak up and all that, is that the community can also get tired. And it's so important to give community feedback. There are certain areas where when you go, the community can actually tell you, you've been here, several of you, many times, what do you want? And so because the community is already enlightened about things that are happening, there's the issue of feedback that comes in, and it's important to note that also when you're dealing with the community, each community needs feedback. Of course, it comes with the whole FPIC process, but apart from that, whatever you're doing in the community, even if it's just about collecting information, you should thrive as much as possible to come back and inform them that, this is what is happening and this is what we are going to do next, so that you can build trust within this given community. Because imagine if I come to you and I tell you ABCD, every single time we've seen 5 different people, possibly from different areas, just getting information from you. The moment the 6th person comes, do you think the person will be willing to speak?
No, they won't.
Especially if there has been no feedback on whatever happened or whichever step has been taken, it will stay put as it is. And so that given area might not develop in the sense in which you thought, but it's because the community decides to be very shielded towards opening up, because they've opened up way too many times and felt disappointed. Right?
Well said, because I like when you go to hospital
Yeah.
and you feel like you have fever, they do lots of tests. And a good doctor will tell you that we tested typhoid, we tested cholera, we tested malaria, we tested all this, are negative, so what you have is this. But as whether it's researchers or whether it's practitioners, you go to a community, you ask so many questions, you don't even come back to say this is where you've reached, you don't even give them results. You go and give those results in boardrooms and meetings elsewhere, and you don't even acknowledge where you got this. Even the least of all is you take so many photos of the communities, then you go share it elsewhere, and the community don't even have them. So they'll hear the photos are being shared in New York and Tokyo, but then they don't even have those photos. Why can't we, the beast of just take some photos, laminate and share back with the community, to even have those photos? But we feel like everything else has a value apart from community. So when you want this, you'll get this from the government, but when you come from a community, you think that they are so free, they are waiting for you. Why me are they asking me for money? Why are they talking about their time? Why you like you've just come and they should be waiting for you, and you don't give feedback, you don't go back to say this is what we are doing, this is where we are. Then the next person comes and does the same thing. Sometimes you ask 1,000 questions and you only get 2 questions. You spend the whole day and you wonder where the other questions are going to. I think somebody calls it utmost ignorance. You ask so many things and you don't even need some of
you don't require
some of the ones that you need, and you don't even give feedback back to the community to say that this is what we got, so that even them, if the next person comes, they say this one we already have, start from here. But because we feel that community is like a playground, so we'll do everything, and then when they ask a question, you say that we've been cited. They've been cited. It's only that they know their rights, and people, when they know their rights, the day people know their rights, the day politicians do not have a free time in this country. So let's make sure that people know their rights. When they ask you questions, don't feel irritated when they're asking me.
Yeah.
Because you remember, the scenario of what we use in advocacy when you are on a traffic, on a road, and you tell people to do this, you give them alternative. Yeah, the policeman stops you here, but tells you to do this. But as we think, communities are just waiting for us Monday to Monday. Even when they're supposed to go on Sunday on church, you need them on that Sunday. On Friday, they're supposed to go to market, you still need them. It can't work that way. And I think we have to change as practitioners, or else we'll find it hard for the next generation in terms of engaging communities.
Yeah. It's important to also consider when you're talking about, even as we're talking about communities, we are part of different communities. So when anyone goes to the community level to interact with the community, to do activities with the community, you need to consider that you're also a part of the community and treat these people the way you'd want to be treated, the way you'd want your sons, your daughters, your relatives, your parents, your siblings to be treated, because they're also a part of the community. Because the moment you go out there and you rubbish everything, you treat people as if you have all the rights and they don't have the rights, just remember that you're part of a society, you're part of a community, and what will sound so wrong and so bad to you is the same thing that will sound so bad and so wrong to the other person.
Yeah. And you see, most of us, sometimes it's, as I've said before, it's blackmail. So tell this community, if you don't talk to me, not to get this water pan, I'll take it elsewhere. Anywhere you're taking, so also communities there.
Yeah.
So why communities have reason to tell you that why we don't want it here? It's because of this reason. And we are told 101, when, for example, somebody tells you that, you want to do a bridge here, don't do it here, then you continue with it. Then you end up, after some time, the water changes its course. So there's a bridge that there's no water below. So the problem still exists, but it's because you don't understand, you've not given the community to tell you their perspective or indigenous knowledge and the way things have always worked. They've been here for a longer period than you, and they'll be here after you. So why would you be in a hurry to say that if you don't do maize today, we are going away?
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. I want you to give us a parting shot or your favorite quote. Or you combine both. You give us a favorite quote of yours and then you give a parting shot.
I think for me, so many things. I think parting shot is that you need to do things the right way from the word go. You rather take time to in the inception and understanding communities rather than be in a hurry, then you regret later. It may be too costly, lives may have been lost, money may have been spent that was spent the wrong way, emotions would have already been drained, and there have been people trust broken. So you'd rather spend your time in understanding the community you're working with at the beginning rather than come later when doing surgery. I think it's say prevention is better than cure. You'd rather prevent rather than cure later when it's very, very expensive. Remember again that community is not homogeneous. Within the community we have youth. Even among the youth you have who go to school, who not go to school. Among women you have who may be loaded, who may not be loaded. Among the old men, you have who have not gone to school, who have gone to school, everybody. So make sure that even as you do that stakeholder engagement in the community, you break all that down and what their interests are, their relations are, and what could. And then the other thing is, I think when you write proposals, the part for justification, it's always about what would happen if you're not here. So again, remember that these people you find them and it will still continue being there before you. So what value add are you coming with? If there's nothing, as you say in safeguards, you either do no harm or do good. Leave them the way they are, the worst scenario. Do better if it's something that you want to add. I think the other thing is that I think for me, inclusion, diversity is the way to start, but inclusion is even better. Diversity means bringing everybody together, but inclusion means that empowering people, having their voices, hearing the voices of the people who may not necessarily are not talking in a meeting. So why are they not talking? Because for somebody to leave their home to come to a meeting that's 5 kilometers away, there must be something that brought them. So you should be asking yourself why those three people are not talking, and find ways of engaging them beyond that so that you also hear why they are not talking. There could be power relations, there could be other things that don't understand. Because I think everybody has a voice. It's only that how you get that, and then using one way to catch fish may not be the best way. There are ways of getting omena, there are ways of getting nail patch, so ensure that is taken into account. I think for me the best thing is take as much time as possible in understanding people and in getting their consent rather than rushing things. Then you realize that whatever you're trying to solve. And then the other thing is, so we always ask, so who's priority? So don't come with things that you think make sense and maybe for the community that's not a priority. So you sit somewhere and think that these guys, they need a cattle dip, and maybe they don't even have cattle in the first place. So I think it's all evolving, but listening more, having the community being in the front, and ensuring that the most affected are the most engaged will take us a long way, and also understanding the systemic failures that this guy is undergoing, so that you don't just plaster things and maybe there are bigger cracks than just, and when your house has a big hole and you plaster it, it just helps you in terms of not seeing that hole, but be very sure that house will fall down if you don't correct the bigger picture. So thank you so much.
Asante. Thank you so much. That was Orwa with the wisdom on community engagement for 20 years plus. Thank you. Asante sana. Bye. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.
See you soon.
Bye.